Hi, Shannon Waller here, and welcome to Inside Strategic Coach with Dan Sullivan. Dan, you said something earlier today which I found thoughtful and provocative. You said you can never move forward with costs, only with investments. You're talking about mindset here, mindset of something as a cost or something as an investment. Thinking one way can hold people back and thinking another way can move people forward, but I want to dive into this. So let's talk about costs versus investments and why that's so important.
I would say that not understanding the difference between cost and investment is probably the single mindset that determines whether an entrepreneur is just always going to stay the same for the rest of their life, or they're going to continually grow for the rest of their life. It's just how they understand the distinction between these two mindsets, but also the activities that flow out of these mindsets. Okay. So first of all, the average entrepreneur, just based on internal revenue statistics in the United States, makes about $45,000 a year. Okay.
That's not very much, Dan.
No, and you consider that some of them make billions. So that means a lot of them are making $15,000 or $20,000 a year. Mm-hmm. And my sense is that they're an entrepreneur, but essentially all they've done is create a job for themselves that it's a job that doesn't go anywhere. So they survive, but they never thrive. They're just putting in time. And usually probably, if you looked at the hours that they spend, they're working for something like minimum wage. And it has to do with them not understanding the difference between a cost, because people who are little entrepreneurs, there's a reason why they're small entrepreneurs. And that is their whole goal is to cut costs. Costs are a bad thing that you want to eliminate. So they don't hire the person because it would make more sense to them to do the other person's work at nighttime or over the weekend, rather than have the cost of paying someone to do the thing that probably doesn't make any sense for them to do. Okay. Which is most things that entrepreneurs do when they're self-employed, is that 90% of what they do doesn't make any sense at all. This came up because I was giving an introduction to Strategic Coach today, and a husband and wife, at the very end of the question and answer period, they came up and said, "We've been thinking about joining your program for 5 years, but we just can't get past the cost of it." So I said, well, let's name the amount of dollars. It's $13,500 for each of you. So 2 times it's $27,000. And they said, well, what do you think we should do? And I said, I think what you should do is tomorrow write 2 checks for $13,500 to our company, and then set a goal that within 6 months, you're going to, out of your higher capability and confidence that comes from coach, that you would make 5 times that amount of money. So it would be 5 times $27,000. So it'd be $135,000 in 6 months. And they said, well, how do we know we're going to get that? And I said, well, you don't, but you have a commitment and you have the courage that if we write this check, we're going to look at all the opportunities and we're going to rethink things so that we get $135,000 back. Okay. And they said, well, we just don't have the money. I said, no, but if you spent the money, you would have the money. But since you're not spending the money, you're looking at us as a cost. And it seems to me that 5 years from now, you'll still be faced with that cost. Our cost is always going to be our cost. 5 years from now, the cost is going to be higher. Our price is going to be higher 5 years from now because we always raise the price. So you're confronted with an even greater cost in the future. So I said, I'm not talking about you, so I'm going to separate the conversation from you. So I've hired people that are $60,000 a year, okay? And I don't see that as a cost. I see it as an investment that if this person comes on board and I get access to this person's talent, I'll get freed up to do massively better work that'll easily pay for the $60,000.
Mhm.
I'll get 200,000 back because the investment isn't so much in the other person, the investment is in me. And if I can get freed up from doing these activities at the level of capability I have, I'll get the 60,000 back really, really quick.
Mhm.
I don't know if you want me to go any further with that, but that's the basic structure of the thought. But if I'm looking at the 60,000 as a cost, one, I'm just not going to do it, which means I'm still doing things that that other person can do better. Or I hire that person, I bring him on board, but every day I communicate that I think he's a cost and he just doesn't deliver. I can tell right off the bat it's a big mistake and I've wasted a thing because I'm communicating that you are actually a cost and I'm watching you every day and I'm going to cut you. I'm going to cut you because my goal is to cut costs. I'm going to cut costs. Okay. And you are a cost. It's only a question of how long I go along with you as a cost before I get rid of you. So I'm never going to get any return on investment from doing that.
That's very, I can feel
You
it. As
consider someone else a cost, I can guarantee you they'll know that they're a cost.
well, and when you treat someone as though a cost, you're treating them as a thing.
Yeah.
You're not actually treating them as a human being.
Well, aren't they?
I wish everyone could see us right now, Dan. It's funny, right? And as you pointed out in other conversations, what do we all try and do with investments in the markets?
Grow them.
You want to grow them. Cost, a smart person will minimize a cost, but to do that to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have somewhere around 120 team members right now, and there's none of them that are a cost. They're all an investment. Now, some turn out to be not a great investment. And some of them turn out to be way bigger investments. So there's a risk in it, and there's courage, but it's not around cost. It's just about investment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The couple points I want to bring out here, someone investing in coach or anything else that's going to increase their capabilities, their investment is in them. And so I often see it as an indicator of someone's confidence in themselves to make the best use of that investment, which is kind of intriguing. So I think some people don't think of themselves as a very good investment.
No, they aren't.
Yeah.
And people who think about other people as cost are bad investments.
Ooh, so true.
I would never invest in anyone who considers other human beings a cost because they'll just waste money.
Mm-hmm. To their way of thinking, it simply justifies that people are in fact expendable, commoditized, not value contributors. It justifies that way of thinking, but they don't realize it's because of how they're treating that person, not because of the person themselves.
But they're treating the other person the way they're treating themselves.
And those people don't grow. I mean, going back to the point, you can never move forward on costs, only with investments.
Yeah, I mean, if you've lived your whole life thinking that you're a cost, you're a burden on the planet,
Yeah, I mean, playing that mindset out to its end is not a happy ending. So, Dan, what can people do if they do feel stuck or trapped in that mindset, or they're listening to you and going, oh my gosh, that's how I've been operating, and I want to switch that around?
Yeah, well, the big thing is just to get, have an amount of money that the change is going to require. It's going to require some money. And then multiply the amount that you want on the return. I'm going to write a check for 60,000 and I want to free things up so that we can get 300,000 back. Mm-hmm. Okay. And your mind will work on that. Either way, your mind will work on that. And if it works once, you're good for life. Mm-hmm. Okay. But you get real smart about who you write the check to. I mean, if it's going to be a cost that down the road, sooner or later, you're going to get rid of the person, you don't put much thought into who the person is. So we have a great tool in Coach called the 4x4 casting tool that our team, you, me, and a lot of other people, we just created a book called Casting, Not Hiring. Don't hire people, cast people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They have a special role and go deep with the special role and how they can be a hero and how they have to perform and everything like that. But you wouldn't do that with someone who's going to be a cost. Mm-hmm. Already it's costing you a lot of effort. But if it's an investment, you'll put an enormous amount of thinking into it to guarantee that this is successful.
On the receiving side, because that is our hiring process at the Coach,
Our casting process.
our casting process. Thank you, Dan. That is our casting process. And we invest in profiles, in interviews. We have a multi-stage process for hiring people. But people know at the beginning, casting process, people know at the beginning that we are willing to make the investment in them. Mm-hmm. We're spending money on Colby. We're spending money, at some point in the process on print and on Clifton Strengths and Myers-Briggs and all the things, because we want to make sure that this is going to pay off. You're not just a commodity. You're not just a warm body filling a slot. You're someone who we want to hire and grow within the organization. You have a role to play. You're being cast in a performance. We want to make sure you're going to win. And people know that when they come in. Even people who don't make it through the process, where it's not a right fit for whatever reason, they thank us for what they've learned about themselves by going through this casting process for joining Coach. Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, Dan, my other takeaway from this, you've said it before, but somehow it just hits more strongly today, is when you're making an investment, have a goal for the return. Mm-hmm. And have it be a multiple.
Well, have a number, but also have a deadline that within this time period, I'm going to get a 5 times return or a double return. That's in terms of how you get freed up to do higher productive, higher profitable work as yourself. My entire team is my investment so that I can operate at a much higher level.
Well, and it's not just a 1-to-1 return or a 1-to-2 return. It's a 5 or 10x return, which is, again, another mindset shift to not just put one thing in and get one thing out. When you're getting leverage, there needs to be a multiplier effect, which I think is another good standard to have for this mindset.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to reverse the process. Earlier in life, we've been in job situations. How would you have liked to have been treated? And what did you not like about that process? Well, you were a cost. And yeah. Most people hate their job experience because they were considered a cost. But any rare situation that people had in life where the other person clearly said that I'm treating you like an investment because we've got big plans for where we want to go, I bet that was a very enjoyable experience. If you were ready for it. I mean, sometimes we're not ready for the opportunities that are presented to us. But my biggest, longest job, I was treated really well, and I learned from that, that's the way you treat people.
Uh-huh. Well, it's certainly how you and Babs have built Coach, which means we have a very engaged team with a ton of longevity who attract other great people to the company. So that definitely plays true at Strategic Coach.
Yeah. So today is our 35th anniversary of starting the workshop program at Strategic Coach. We've been through, I would say, 6 or 7 downturns. Certainly the 50 years that I've been coach, there's been 6 or 7 downturns. And once we got to where we had a team around us, we had a dozen, 15, 20 people. When we went into the downturn, I said the number one goal of going through the downturn is that when we come out of the downturn, we do it with the same team that we went in, because all of our competition will have cut costs. What we'll do is we'll enhance our investments so that we come out really, really strong. And we did that with the 2 that I remember most were the 08-09 big subprime crises in the States, and then of course, COVID. And we came out much stronger of both of those than we went in. But I said, we want you to grow, and we want you to get better during this period when other companies are eliminating their people because of their costs. And we've shot ahead as a result of treating the team as an investment and not a cost. You don't cut down on your investments.
No, in fact, you double down.
Yeah. So
fascinating. Anyway, Dan, thank you, because I think it's key to know the crucial mindset of not growing or growing as an entrepreneur. And as you said, it's really looking at things as investments, not cost, including yourself, your team, that also spreads to technology and every other part of the company. But to go into it with a time frame and knowing that you want a multiplier return, an exponential impact on that.
Don't be an angry, anxious, resentful $45,000 a year cost cutter.
No, that would be about it. Be a winner.
Be a winner.
I love this. Dan, thank you so much. Always fascinating.